Hello, everyone. Welcome to Five Writers, 5 Minutes, where five very intrepid, very experienced authors come together and talk about the wonderful world of writing, particularly writing for kids. And my name is Deborah Abella.
My name is Zanny Louise.
I'm Leanne Tanner.
I'm Mick Elliott.
And I'm Sarah Armstrong.
And Mick Elliott, thank you so much for joining us today. Mick is the author and illustrator of Dads and Dogs, Mums and Mogs, and the middle grade series, The Turners and Squidge Dibley. So we're very lucky to have Mick here today. We're going to talk about cliffhangers and closing lines. Now, we did an episode a little while ago about opening lines, and that is, of course, super, super important. But that end of that chapter, the end of that paragraph, we need to think about those things really carefully as well. I sometimes have gotten caught and I've wanted to put a revelation halfway through a chapter, and my editors will say, actually, just leave that right to the end. So maybe a character has seen something and I want to say, oh my gosh, they've noticed that a friend of theirs has been kidnapped. And they'll go, no, just let them then act without telling the reader what they've noticed. And then at the end, the last line of the chapter can be, and Lisette was kidnapped. So your closing lines to paragraphs, to chapters, to books, of course, they are super, super important. And I wanted to just talk about chapter 1 in the Book of Wondrous Possibilities. So a young girl called Lisette rushes into a shop where a little boy is in a bookshop. She's got a parcel for him. It is addressed to him. She tells him he has to open it. Now, he has never seen this kid before in his life. She knows his name. She knows where he lives. And he doesn't want a bar of her. He doesn't want to have anything to do with this parcel. His mum died almost a year ago. He lives in the bookshop with his uncle and his pet mouse, Avery. But this is the end of chapter 1 when she says, you have to open the parcel. Arlo did as she said, which was when he saw it. He felt as if a snowball had pounded into his chest. The parcel was addressed to him. He recognized the handwriting instantly. It was from his mother. So I wanted straight away at the end of chapter 1 for kids to go, what? Wait, but no, his mum died almost a year ago. So I want, in every single chapter, I try to leave my reader with a little bit of, what? Wait a minute. So let's talk about closing lines and cliffhangers. Zanny, what do you do at the end of your chapters to invite your reader to kind of keep reading?
Yeah, I think it's roughly what you're saying, Deb. I want an invitation to get into the next chapter. And I think for me, it's fairly intuitive. I guess I want to have my own questions, so I've got enough material going into the next chapter. When it comes to closing lines, obviously the end is really important for a book because that's the feeling that you're leaving your reader with, and that's the thing that will live in them for hopefully the rest of time. But I often, if I'm stuck with an ending, I often go back to the beginning and I think about where my character started. And there's often an opening image or some sort of tone to the way the book began that you can reflect in that end scene or that last line, even a bit of a callback to that first line. And I find that gives a sense of satisfaction when you read that last line and you just think, oh, that feels complete. It's kind of like there's a circle that it's reached the other end. But when we get to the end of the story, of course, the character has transformed and they've gone through something and they've realized something. And there's just this lovely sense of satisfaction. When we write picture books, we intentionally have something called a rest page, which is like that very last page, that 30-second page in a book. It is what it sounds like. It's like a rest. It's a breath. It's a sense of, a hug or something like this that you want to leave your readers with. So I think more than anything, I'm thinking about the feeling rather than the words themselves. Yeah.
That's really interesting, Zanny. I love that idea of coming back in a circle. I particularly love doing that in picture books. I think, sort of taking something from the beginning so that the story goes out into a circle and then comes back to a place that is the same but different. I really love that. I also love cliffhangers at the ends of chapters that are going to launch the reader into the next chapter. Where I don't like cliffhangers is at the end of books. If it's a series and you've decided that you're going to have a cliffhanger at the end of the first book and at the end of the second book so that people will jump to read the next book. If you do that, I am not your friend. I really, really hate cliffhangers at the ends of books, that are supposed to get you to read the next series. I believe very, very strongly that each book in a series has to have its own arc and it has to have a satisfying conclusion at the end of that book. And to borrow something from romance novels, the end of a series book doesn't have to be happy ever after, but it does have to be happy for now. You know, there has to be some kind of new balance reached that gives the characters a rest before they move on to the next book. Having said that, I don't like closing lines that are too neat. I don't like all the ends being closed off to a book. I like sort of having some things that the reader can go away and go, oh, I wonder what happened after that. And, you know, did this work out or did that work out? So I like a few things left open at the end of the book. I like an ending that is both satisfying and unexpected. You know, sometimes we can see what's coming towards the end of a book. And what I love is when you think you can see what's coming and the author does something that takes you in a completely different direction and you end up saying, oh my God, that is so satisfying. I didn't see it. It's completely different from what I was expecting. And it's so much better than what I was expecting. So that's, you know, like, I mean, that's my ideal sort of ending.
It's interesting because I'm someone who has written a really only series, and so I've grappled with that exact conundrum that you're talking about there, Leanne, which is how do you make a single book in a series be a self-contained, satisfying piece of work, but also spread some breadcrumbs or sprinkle some breadcrumbs that are going to entice the reader to read on. And I would say that I very much focus on that idea that, yes, you have to get to the end and go, great, I can feel that this particular adventure, this particular story with these characters, this journey is complete. Perhaps there's a few little tendrils here and there that you're going to pick up elsewhere. But I mean, I've found working with the respective publishers on my series that the best way usually to do it is to put a little sample chapter of the next book. So there's a clear, yep, it is the end. We're there, we're done. But hey, if you would like to know a little bit of what's coming next, here's your little 5 pages that will take you into the next one. But I would also say, as someone who's very passionate about writing for a target audience of reluctant boy readers, it's a real tightrope to walk, because on the one hand, you need those chapter breaks. You need the chapters to be short and punchy, and for them to have a little moment to go, oh, okay, great, I've just read a whole chapter. Well done, me. But also that there is enough there so that they don't go, and so now I might go and jump on Minecraft or with some YouTube. You've got to have enough there that's going to entice them to move forward. So a lot of plotting. And I mean, I've used literal cliffhangers sometimes, certainly in the Turners. There were, in the first book, there was literally a moment where the character was literally hanging from a cliff by, the tail of a Komodo dragon, to get us into the next chapter. But it's not easy. It's not easy. What about you, Sarah?
I love writing cliffhangers at the end of chapters, not at the end of books, Lee, and I hasten to say I dislike them as well. But our job is to keep the reader reading, right? Particularly because there's so many other interesting things to do out there. So often for me, it's as simple as just putting basically a chapter end in the middle of some piece of action, not finishing up and tying up the piece of action at the end of a chapter, which is kind of a bit of an instinct, right? So it's just stopping the chapter before things go really crazy, and it doesn't have to be kind of, oh, I'm about to fall off a cliff or a rock's about to fall on me or something, like at the end of a chapter. It can be just, there's a knock on the door, open the door and someone's standing there completely unexpected. It's a bit like the handwriting was Arlo's mum's writing, that sort of thing, and boom, there the chapter ends. So I guess I'm always trying to raise questions in the reader's mind about what's about to happen next. And so much of writing is about raising questions or leaving gaps in information. So for instance, in Magic Awry, they've just had a big, dangerous confrontation with the baddies and they've escaped and they're driving up the highway and they've got away, and there's that moment of relaxation. And then the person driving looks in the rear vision and says, that's them behind us.
Yeah.
And I finished the chapter there. So it's just that moment of, oh yeah, we're just relaxing, and no. Yeah, I guess for me, it's as much as anything about figuring out where to end a chapter, I think. And like you, Leanne, I don't like a really neat closing to a book. It's a very tricky, delicate balance between it being fully satisfying and meeting that need for me that things turn out well, but not too saccharine or too sweet. So sometimes just one thing does not get resolved. One thing is a bit sad or disappointing, but most things are great. That's how
Yeah.
I sort of like to get that balance with the closing of a book.
Kind of inevitable yet surprising. I've heard this. Yeah, like it's not predictable, but it's inevitable. Yeah.
And it's the eternal juggle of trying to craft these brilliant books and stories that kids are gonna like just really gravitate towards. And like you said, Mick, they're gonna go, oh, I'm just gonna read another chapter and not run off to do something else. Thank you, very, very clever people. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and words on cliffhangers and closings and endings. We are 5 writers, 5 minutes. It's more than 5 minutes. We know that. We're aware. We try. But thank you so much for being here today, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.